in a higher position. I was a deputy cabinet member. I thought it was better to stay in the higher position of influence in that situation rather than to just stick out and.
It's like a chess game, isn't it? You've got to pick.
It is a chess game. It's a value judgment on each one. You can say, I will never vote against my principles until you get there. Yeah. But I was able to use my position of influence in many different things. And so I think, yes, that was a small funding issue. If I'd voted against it, it still would have gone through. I would have made my point. I would have made my mark in the sand. I would have lost my deputy executive position. Do you see what I mean? And I would have lost my influence there.
Yeah.
So politics, it's not black and white.
No.
It's shades of grey in every decision that you make.
So were there shades of grey, do you think, just as an off-the-wall question, over in Alabama when they decided to ban abortion?
Wow. They've defined it and made it black and white, haven't they?
It's amazing, isn't it?
It's a difficult one. Don't go down that one too far.
It's interesting. So I know part of your work within Bishop Stortford were to help people or young women who were having to make decisions. So you went out.
I was the chairman of the Choices Crisis Pregnancy Centre.
Wow.
And ladies would counsel people. If you have an unwanted pregnancy, you've got three options. Number one is to have an abortion. Number two is to keep the baby. Number three is adoption. Now, adoption is so difficult and so painful that people tend not to choose that. The children that are adopted are ones that are taken into care. So you discussing with women whether they can have an abortion or whether they want to keep the baby. And I did on 3 occasions counsel men on because they came along and wanted to see a couple. So what Anne and I would do, I would talk to the man, she would talk to the woman, we would bring them together and facilitate an open and honest conversation between them. And the hidden part of abortion is the regret and pain that women suffer with post-abortion stress and regret. And every year there's a reminder, this would have been the birthday. And all those sorts of things are swept under the table. But we didn't face women with those things. We would just say, by your own value system, what do you think you should do? And very often people would say, look, I know it's wrong. I don't want to do it, but I had no option. So we discussed amongst the ladies who are counselling, if somebody said they're going to have an abortion, would you take them to the clinic and hold their hand? Even though we actually felt that it was wrong. And the lady said, yes, they would, because they would respect the person and just love them through the trial that they were going through. So, we closed it because people didn't come anymore.
Okay.
Because abortion is so acceptable that it wasn't seen as something that counselling would be needed for. The government say that any woman who goes for an abortion has to receive counselling, and Marie Stopes and the BPAS are bound to offer it. But I think it's a side issue rather than a main way of helping people.
Well, as you said earlier, if America sneezes, we catch a cold. So let's hope that that's not going to come over, because as I read in, I think, The Guardian, just because abortion is banned doesn't mean to say it's not going to happen.
That's the problem, isn't it?
There was a lady, I mean, if you're still interested in it, I'm just trying to see where I wrote her name. Gabrielle Blair wrote a long tweet a year ago around why abortion isn't a woman's problem, it's a man's problem.
Oh gosh,
and
yes.
It's really interesting to see the whole...
Men have sloping shoulders in this.
Yes, yeah.
A couple of men that I did counsel said, well, I don't want her to have an abortion. And I said, have you told her that? No, I haven't. And I said, well, come on. Let's do it. And then they can accept responsibility that it's their child and say, look, I don't actually want you to have an abortion, and here I am.
Yeah, exactly, because so many women think they're all on their own and it's their choice.
Absolutely. And it's not right for the woman to have to make a decision on her own. Yes. I did see a cartoon the other day on Facebook of men in chastity pants. So that's the solution to the abortion problem.
That would work. Well, this lady suggests castration If they've caused them to require an abortion, then they should be castrated. They can have their sperm frozen, or the other thing is at birth, give them all vasectomies, and then get it reversed when they want to start a family. And it's taking the problem away. And whilst that might seem,
it sounds a bit like Aldous Huxley's Brave New World.
but at the same time, everything else that in this diatribe of a tweet is like, absolutely, just you can't. Everything she said makes perfect sense, because it's all about male pleasure and how we assume responsibility for something that isn't our fault.
Yes. Let me make a flippant comment. There are too many men whose balls are bigger than their brains.
I won't disagree with that. Oh dear, brilliant. Okay, so I'm just looking at my little list here.
We must be working our way down there.
I know. Yeah. So you've done. We've talked about your actual business, and we've talked about your. Oh, what we haven't done, John, is talk about your love of steam engines. Tell us about that. It's a bit of a cornered.
Complete diversion.
Yeah.
Probably fostered by my father, because when I was probably 4 or 5, he took me up to London to see the Monsters.
Oh, right.
And this was King's Cross Station, to see the steam engines there.
Yeah.
And I remember a man, all greasy, climbing down behind the train and uncoupling the train from the locomotive. Mm-hmm. And I was just gripped by steam engines. Lovely. Then he went to his mum's house, and up in the loft was an old Mammoth steam engine, little one that just goes round on the table, and brought that home and played with it. Bought one, took it apart, tried to turn it into a locomotive. And so from a very young age, I've just been enthralled by steam power. Even made a steam turbine, and it was a paint tin with a kind of metal windmill blade on the top. And you punch a hole in the top of the paint tin, put a bit of water in it, put it in a bonfire, and then when the steam pressure gets up, it blows the windmill round. You know, there's something about steam power. Don't ask me what.
Were you good at science then when you were at school? Was that your?
I was good at science.
Right.
Yeah. That science and engineering makes sense to me.
Yeah.
They make sense of the world that we live in. They explain nature, which is great. Well, they explain the way nature works. So steam engine is very primitive engineering, the original stuff, back in the late 1700s. They started building steam engines, and you can do it quite locally. You can dig a hole and find coal. You can dig another hole and find iron ore. You can smelt that into iron and steel, and you go to the brook and get some water, and you've got everything you need to make a steam engine. Gosh. And the original ones were made by blacksmiths. Very primitive engineering. In fact, one of the Stevensons, I think, when he was trying to make a smooth bore through one of his cylinders, he needed to drag a disc through a block, and he used charging horses with ropes and pulleys to give him the energy that he needed to drag this drift through to make a smooth cylinder. Wow. So that's how primitive the engineering can be. Yeah. Then you build your steam engine. And there's a thrill in boiling it, getting up to pressure and making it work.
When you consider what they had to go through in order to create the very first one, it's a bit like flight for the Wright brothers, isn't it? It's like, in today's age, you know, where are those people? Well, I guess they're all working on apps and things, but
yes, they are. Yeah,
it's like just the ingenuity and the way their brain works and the patience that they have to try something again and again and again and again and again.
Yeah.
And the patience you must have had to put that steam engine together, because you actually brought that to a BeCollaboration meeting, didn't you? And I was like, come on then, tell me about it. And then I think Andrew said he's made every single bit of that. And I'm like, no, surely it's a kit thing. You just
no. But for some things there are no kits. And the other thing is it's experimental, because there are no drawings. You just sort of copy it. I understand the basic principles.
Right.
And I copy bits from here, there and everywhere. And so sometimes you might have to make some elements 2 or 3 times before they work.
Wow.
But
so what are you working on at the moment? Have you got something in progress?
Yeah, there was an engineering company in Stortford that used to train boys, apprentices, and they got them building model traction engines.
Right.
Do you know what a traction engine is? No, okay. It's like a steam tractor. You know, a steam
Oh,
roller?
right. Yeah.
Toot toot, rolling down the road. Well, a
Yeah.
traction engine is one of them.
Okay. Wow.
And they started building 5 many years ago. They finished 1, and then they got abandoned when they stopped having apprentices at the works.
Right.
And so when the works closed, I took over all these engines. So in my shed, I have 5 part-built model traction engines.
You've got a big shed then.
I had to buy a bigger shed. I actually had to buy a bigger shed to fit them all in. Well, the old one was falling down. So that's what I'm going to be doing now. Now, I'm very busy this summer with a church project, so I've done nothing for a while. But August, September, I'm going to be getting to it. And so
Anne, is she an enthusiast as well?
No, not in the least. No. She's bored by steam. And I belong to a model engineering society at Audley End, and there's his Lord Braybrook's Railway, and around the picnic ground there's a little track, and the club runs that. And Anne has come over once or twice as a long-suffering wife and been in the ticket office selling tickets while I do the train rides.
Oh, lovely.
It's not her cup of tea.
So
which is fine.
I don't know how long you've been doing those train rides, but is it possible that you were driving the train when me and my kids went round about 25 years ago?
No, not that long ago. No, I really came back to the hobby once the girls were older.
You got older, so you got no son.
I was allowed to have time and money.
Yeah,
it's quite expensive, you know.
I can imagine.
Buying all those materials. I mean, the materials to make the boiler for that locomotive were about £650. Wow. Then the silver solder on top of that was a couple of £100 worth of silver solder. And then I had to buy the oxypropane kit, and that was a couple of £100 to actually do the work. So you're looking at thousands by the time it's built.
Gosh.
And it is a rich man's hobby, I'm afraid.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, your final passion at the moment is Love Stortford, isn't it? Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Okay. Well, I saw a video on YouTube a couple of years ago called Love Bewdley, and BBC it was a sort of 2-minute news report that BBC Midlands did, one of these after the news things. And I saw that the churches in Bewdley were going round, they were doing random acts of kindness, they were washing cars, giving away flowers and chocolates, generally blessing the community. They're saying, God loves us, we want to spread that love around. That's what we can do in Bishop Stortford. Whoa! Yeah. But it's taken off a bit more than I imagined. So one of the very traditional churches in town, and I thought they wouldn't be interested, have come back to me and said, we want this number of T-shirts. We're going to keep the church open all week. We're going to be serving tea and coffee. We're going to go and do some gardening. We've got another project on. I thought, they got it. And so if you're in Bishop Stortford on the 15th of June, there's every chance you'll be given, oh, look, I've got them. Oh, it's as if I planned it, isn't it? There we are. We were experimenting yesterday with a nice economical bunch of flowers. So here's a little pot of dianthus that you could be given. You might be given some chocolates. Some children could be given a little, not construction kit, a craft kit, which are being put together at the moment. You might get a free hug.
Oh, lovely.
You'll see a bunch of people advertising free hugs.
That's brilliant.
Or you might go into a coffee shop and somebody will say, well, your coffee's already been paid for.
Oh.
Something like that.
Yeah, how lovely.
So there's going to be a lot going on Carnival Day. But also, during the week, teams are going out litter picking, all with their Love Stortford T-shirts on. Yeah. And also during the week, in the evenings, Market Square is going to be tarted up. Right. Now, 2 weeks' time, we're going to jet wash it with a hot jet washer, get all the Yorkstone looking good, and all the street furniture will be painted. We're putting up some new planters, so Stortford in Bloom can get some nice spring or summer planting in there. Yeah. And so the men are going to be doing that. On Thursday, there'll be a market stall with free tea and coffee. And then on the Saturday or